I'm live. I'm reading Vacation. It is a book by Joan Marshall Grant. It was a travel book of mainly France and a little bit of Switzerland in 1946. She and her then husband Charles escaped the rationing in England and went to France on a tour by car. We are here on chapter 27, No Minerals. We had eaten a pleasant dinner, but on the way out of the restaurant I felt impending disaster, such as may have been familiar to one sufficiently unweary to take a snack with the Borgias. Perhaps if I were thoroughly sick, the humiliation of Blaine's might be averted. But how to be sick in decent privacy when, through some strange whimsy of the architect, our bathroom had no door but instead an archway decorated with fretwork? "Where shall we go now?" said Charles, wide awake and inclined to adventure. If he knew I was again garlic-ridden, he would spend a dreary evening, alternately wondering whether to give me another injection or reminding me that it was idiotic not to be able to detect the taste in time. "I'm tired," I said. "I wish to lie in bed and read placidly without you telling me to turn off the lights. I suggest that you have a jolly masculine evening, all by yourself." He said with apparent sincerity that he enjoyed adventures more if I shared them, but the need for privacy was becoming too insistent for me to reply with tact. He left me at the hotel and walked away, after giving me his cigarette case to show that it might otherwise be stolen in the low dives to which my pallid attitude had driven him. My next 2 hours were squalid, exhausting, but moderately effective. I woke at intervals to hear the church clock announce that Charles was either lost on a mountain road or lying in a pool of blood, having quarrelled with at least a dozen Apaches. However, as there was nothing I could do for either condition, I tried not to worry. At 4, the door was opened with extreme caution. I pretended to wait slowly and asked with a yawn whether he had enjoyed himself. He said it had been an interesting evening and that he would regale me with the details in the morning. He folded his clothes neatly on a chair, put his shoes outside the door, brushed his teeth carefully and climbed into bed instantly to sleep. Obviously, his version, especially when told under the dimming influence of mock coffee and that extraordinary toast which comes in cellophane-wrapped slices and is supposed to contain so many healthful chemicals, was not so exciting nor so full as I could have wished. Bearing this in mind, I gave a kindly reconstruction. His first call was at a large and rather seedy bar, where there was a loud band to which no one ever danced. He knew this, although he did not take a table, but modestly contented himself with a bar stool from which the following conversation took place. "A cognac, please." "Here you are, sir." Charles, sniffing. "Sorry, I meant cognac." He passes the glass untasted across the bar. Barman, "It's good stuff, sir. Nothing wrong with it." Charles, "I did not say there was, but I asked for cognac." "Yes, sir." The barman, leaving the glass on the bar, pours out another from a different bottle, and the same dialogue is repeated with rather more heat. This time, instead of getting another bottle down from the wall-stocked shelves behind him, the barman turns to the patron, who is only a few yards away, and the patron gives the barman a key. The key, applied to a cupboard under the bar, allows a bottle to emerge from which real cognac is poured. At the same time, the 2 other glasses are removed and everyone is happy. At least we must presume so, for Charles assures me there were no harsh words. As he was in process of checking out more intimately this cognac, a man appeared in a scarlet bowler hat. Charles says he is glad that this is at the very beginning of the evening. This stranger turns out to be only the local comic, and he does a series of bawdy songs, which Charles says he cannot at all remember. Just to be quite sure that the cognac is quite right, he takes a couple more and solemnly reads a paper which he has brought along for just that purpose, a dignified cachet to a place full of wine and the other things also. The stuff seems well enough to be politely thanks to the barman, and so he politely thanks the barman and hands him a lavish tip to show that there is no ill feeling. The barman then confides to the officer that the mistake would not have happened, only that he thought Charles was American. The reply to this is not recorded, but it appears that Charles decided he will walk slowly home, as it now was nearing his bedtime. "I should have been home by 11, he said, with the air of the one who has been kept late by a last-minute rush of business. But as I walked along, there happened to be a place with a female band in it, and as I had noticed from there this morning, I went in, just to see what sort of hours they worked. Apparently this was quite true. The band did keep at it most of the day as well as half the night. Charles described them as musical hacks, and insisted that they were all very old. He refrained from getting into conversation, permitting himself only to congratulate one of them, who put on quite a credible solo on a cello. How she came to be playing a solo cello in a dance band was not disclosed. We can fairly assume that the premises were fully licensed, though Charles claims that he took only a little glass of beer. Yet the beer had the unfortunate effect of further delaying his return home, for he now felt impelled to take a little exercise and set off at a brisk pace towards the mountains. The night air, however, did not suit him so well as he had hoped, and before he had been walking more than 5 minutes he turned left and left again, which took him towards the hotel. It seemed as though Pat Vere was going to allow him an early night after all, and I can imagine him hurrying because he was so anxious to see me again. Yet he had the ill luck to be further delayed. Duty is duty, and he would never pass a lost dog without trying to find its owner. The dog, like the gentleman and the red bowler, was real. It was sitting dejectedly on the pavement, and Charles went down to make out if it was lost. He probably felt keenly about this, because he himself was by no means sure of his whereabouts. The dog seemed so depressed that Charles decided that the best thing to do was to assume it belonged to the place outside which it was sitting, and by a strange coincidence this was a night haunt of some kind. As he looked up, he saw for the first time a neon sign saying so in electric blue. Moreover, and it was funny that he had not heard it before, there was a sound of revelry. To complete the chain of coincidence which was keeping him from his bed, as he took a step towards the door, the depressed Alsatian jumped up with every symptom of vitality and let off a series of barks. This so clearly meant both that there was nothing wrong with the dog and that it did indeed belong to the what, that Charles had no need to disturb the doorman or whatever it was. So he turned from the garish portals and was moving off when the door opened and a voice said, "Ah, come in, sir. You will pardon the dog. He's trained to act as doorman for us. Yes, do come in. Come in." What could poor Charles do without seeming discourteous? He had to accept the invitation, being the temporary representative of that on which the sun never sets. He was glad to see, he said, there was a small bar, for it would have been so much more difficult to get away quickly if he'd had to sit down, Politeness, he thought, would be served with only a single cognac. He would be with me in a matter of minutes. He was not further away from the hotel than he hoped. Cognac, please, said Charles. Barman, here you are, sir. Charles sniffing, sorry, I meant cognac. He passes the glass, untouched, across the bar. It's good stuff, sir. Nothing wrong with it. I didn't say there was, but I asked for cognac. Yes, sir. Charles was so impressed by the coincidence of getting synthetic brandy twice in the same night that he launched into a considerable discussion with the barman and some of the clients. The subject interested him so much that he kindly gave me the following views. Mind you, in the ordinary way, I have no objection to eau de vin if it is so good, and you must realize that there is no reason why it should not be good. There is an excellent eau de vin which is misnamed vodka. There is the apple eau de vin, not brandy, properly speaking, called Calvados. And of course, there is Mark, I said innocently. He continued unwrung. There is the Scots eau de vin called Uskable. Don't try to make some stuff in Irish called don't they make some stuff in Ireland called poutine? He went on as though unaware of the interruption. But all these are eau de vie. Eau de vie in virtue of the fact that they are honest distilleries of suitable ferments. Potatoes, maize, any grain in fact, or any fruit. Among primitives, the fermentation is sometimes induced by chewing a little of the grain and spitting it into the rest. However, as I was saying, these are not brandy. Brandy must be made from grapes, even though not from grape juice. Among the peasants of Portugal, it is common to drink brandy made from the skin and pips, which have been left over the wine pressing. I have drunk such stuff warm from the still. How interesting, Charles, but you were going to tell me about cognac. Oh yes, well, cognac is made from grapes grown in the official district of Cognac. So wherever you are, see what you ask for and you get it. You should have had champagne, I said. Surely they expected it? It had not been my intention, but I noticed that every table was dressed by a bottle, although only 4 tables were occupied. Purely from curiosity, I took up one to see the label. It was covered with dust, and 2 spiders had died in the empty ice bucket. They were only pitiful decoys. How could I do less than have a real one? It is sad to drink alone, I said sympathetically. I only asked her to share my table to save the poor girl from a tiresome type who should really have been thrown out. She danced very badly, but I had to be civil. Then absent-mindedly he added, she was the patron's niece, so they gave us really decent cognac. You were sober all night when you came in, I remarked. How many cognacs did you have during the evening? He began counting on his fingers. 3 at the first place, none in the second, perhaps 4 in the boîte, and of course I had 1 after dinner. But I have discovered the way to drink with no ill after effects. Stick to cognac neat and follow each with a large glass of mineral water. I was genuinely interested. This was a new idea, and one which should be widely known amongst the young of both sexes, who have to go about in the great wide world. It was important to get the details correctly. Evian might not be so effective as Vichy or Petrol. What kind of mineral water? I don't know. I didn't have any, he said innocently, and seemed surprised when I began to laugh. That was a lovely chapter. Cable Railway is the next chapter. Have a lovely Sunday, the 12th of January.